Welcome to Moss Marketing Mondays, aka the M3 Podcast. Brought to you by Moss Marketing Group, bringing you everything marketing every Monday. Stay tuned for marketing tips and tricks you can use today. The M3 Podcast, marketing knowledge to help you succeed. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the M3 Podcast. Thank you for joining this week. This week, I have Ricky on with us, David, and Nick. Thank you guys for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
So these fellows that are with us today are actually, I think, probably the first podcast we've had that are outside of Kansas City business owners.
I believe that's correct.
I think it is.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Hey, well, thanks. Thanks again.
So David is from Kansas. You don't currently live in Kansas, though, correct?
No, I split my time between Dallas and Grand Haven, Michigan.
Nice. And Nick is from Iowa.
Yeah, born and raised in Illinois, but made it a state over.
Traveled far.
Yeah.
So both you guys, Nick, I know you're predominantly automotive space, and David, you have a very wide variety of stuff, I feel like.
Yeah, we've really diversified. You know, after 2007 hit, I had everything in automotive, and when that started hitting, I mean everything. Like, I was losing money everywhere, but it was all automotive, and I really realized at that point I needed to. If I lost the automotive income, I was going to lose 100% of my income, and so I made a real conscious decision that okay, I'm going to split my income up. And have 20% of it automotive, 20%, and for us it's restaurants and gyms and different things, but it was just really diversifying our portfolio. So we knew that, okay, if we lose some segment really drops, we lose 20% of our income we have to replace rather than 100% of our income. So
Very smart move there.
Brilliant.
So most of the podcast are friends that I have, business owners that we work with, things like that. This connection's a little bit different of how we've all been brought together here. So, Ricky, how did you two meet?
So we originally met, it was before I started at the dealership. We met at the gym, which is where I feel like almost every connection I've ever made is somehow related through a gym.
right.
But I was going to start at Hayes Chevrolet, and then you convinced me to go out to Lewis, which you had an affiliation with, and that's kind of, for the most part, how that started.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's how I got into the automotive industry, and also how I believe that's how we met.
Yeah. I knew that you were looking at, and I'd always admired, in the gym because your work ethic and everything, and because I had that relationship. And Hayes is a smaller town, but we're really, really heavily involved. And so, I just wanted you to go to a place where we'd have that connection. So I knew you'd still be part of our big picture, and yet, within things that we kind of controlled or whatever. So yeah, we convinced you to go to sell Toyotas and Fords and Chryslers instead of Chevys.
So he's saying you were a hot ticket item at that time.
I guess. I didn't know it. But.
So that led you into the car space. I want to go on both of you guys. What led into the car space originally?
Oh, boy, I probably got a little bit different background story than he does.
We'll start with you, Nick.
I tell you what, I was living out in Colorado, and I didn't know what I was doing with my life. I actually quit college to move out there. It was probably the best thing I ever did for myself, man. I was actually a delivery driver for a burrito place out there, and I just wanted to change it up, man. I met a guy at the right time, and he just asked me what I do for a living, and I explained to him, and boy, he saw some light at the end of my tunnel. He's like, man, that's a waste of your talent. You're going to come with me this week. You're going to come do this tent sale is what we were doing. So I actually got into the car business as being a road guy, believe it or not, and kind of traveled around. I think I was blessed. On my fourth sale, I bumped into this guy and just kind of, I loved everything that Dave stood for. He was just the most respectful dude to work for. He was super nice to all the customers. I mean, yeah, it was a blessing, man. So... yeah, from there, I went back to Colorado. I ran a couple of dealerships out there, and then Dave called me with the current gig that I have right now. So,
Very nice.
Moved out to Iowa to go help a family friend of his, and that's pretty much my family now. So,
Dave, what got you into the car space?
So I was actually taking a break out of school from my bachelor's before I went back, and I started as a grader as a car dealership because I moved up. I was in Kansas and moved for the summer to Michigan to be with my sister, and her husband had a kind of a pig farm, and I definitely didn't want to do that. So, but even though I thought I was going for vacation, he required I had a job, so I responded to an ad in the paper for being a greeter at a car dealership. It was a Chrysler store in Little Jackson, Michigan, and my third day there, on a Saturday, there was no salesperson, so I took a customer, walked them all the way through, and brought an offer up to the desk, and they made me a salesman the following Monday, and I loved it, and I think I loved it too because we came from pretty modest background. My dad was a heavy duty truck mechanic, but man, we had work ethic, and it was so, I don't know, it was so visual. You could really just see yourself outworking everybody. Like it wasn't like, man, I hope I'm outworking everybody. I mean, you knew you were outworking, because if you had somebody at your desk or you were on the phone and they weren't, you were outworking them. And I loved that. And it just grew, and, I was able to, move into sales management, and then became a GM, and then, got into my first dealership, and then bought into a few more. And then I kind of retired from everything and moved to Dallas, and then got right back into the car business.
Funny the way that works.
I think it just pulls people back. It's just after you're in it, there's always a tide to it.
See,
somehow.
I'm only 27. I just turned 27. So I've had a lot of the older guys, the road dogs, everybody looking out for me. And I'm just making the conscious decision now. I'm never leaving the car business, not entirely.
Yeah, that's when I stepped out, it was like we're still very heavily tied to it. And we were just talking before this on how many people come on the podcast from the automotive space. But it's also, you touched on that work ethic. In the car space, I feel like it does breed a work ethic in 20% of people.
Right.
There's that 20% of people that you see in the car space that come out with a work ethic that they stand way taller than everyone else in the whole entire space. And you can see it in sales. You can see it in all these different spaces. And I remember getting sales guys that would come in that I'm like, I'm not going to have them very long.
Right.
You just know it. He's too good for what he is doing. He is going to get an offer to go somewhere. Like, you just know it. Right. And it was hard watching that, but it's also like, it was awesome watching that for someone to go build a future for themselves. But you have somebody that puts up 25, 30 cars in a month, somebody that's putting up 10, that person's outworking them. There's a set line on there. It's not, there's no ifs, ands, or buts when you're talking about the what if I'm outworking the next guy.
Pretty white and black when it comes down to the sales.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No gray area.
Absolutely. And that's what I really liked about the car business. So, but I always applied it to regular life. Like, if you meet 10 people and you're on a normal day, odds are 5 of them you would never want to spend another 30 seconds with anyway, right?
I'd probably say higher than that.
Yeah. And then a couple of them that, if I saw them again at another party, I'd say hi to them. But then there's 1 or 2 guys that you're like, okay, this is where I'm at, right? So it's that 10-20%, right? I mean, it's that 10-20% number where these are the people I want to surround myself with. And that old expression, you never know what someone is like until you try their shoes on. Man, I will wear your shoes out. I put on your shoes. You won't get your shoes back because I'm going to outwork those shoes.
They're Dave's shoes now.
Right. Yeah. Right.
You lost your shoes.
Right.
You are now barefoot.
And that 10% or that 20%, those are the people that are, just like in any industry, those are the good ones, right? Those are the guys you learn from, but those are the guys that are best to beat. Those are the guys that you take pride in beating that guy in a fun way. Marvin Harrison from the Colts said my favorite line of all time. I get paid to practice. I play the game for free. And going on the floor on a Saturday, right? I mean, in my position, I don't need to work on Saturdays. I'm there every Saturday because I don't have to talk to my CFO. I don't have to talk to the financial offices. There's nobody else working except the sales department. And that's the best feeling of all, is to be around that energy, closing those deals and feeling. And that's one of the things that drew me to Nick was he was such a natural closer with people. He was so genuine and people love that. And that's the best part of it. I mean, as long as you're fulfilling your promises to customers, you're going to be successful. But customers are like, it's a numbers game, right? The more customers I have in my box, the more things I can do outside my box. And when I see a guy like you said, okay, I know this guy selling 30 cars a month. He's way bigger in the car business. The challenge for me was, what can I do with that guy? Where can we go and keep this person among our group? right?
Yeah.
Maybe I take him to one of our other businesses. Maybe we create a position for him, but how do I keep that talent in my circle? And, I think that's the most important thing with that 10, 20% is once you've dialed it down, you can really focus on the people who want to be focused on, because nothing's worse, as you know, working with somebody who really doesn't want it.
Yeah.
And you want it more than they do.
That's probably the hardest thing. And that's, I mean, building this company, when you talk about beating someone that's good, that is the best feeling in the world. And it's funny, like when we got into this space, people were like, they're talking about these other companies that we're going to compete with and things like that. I'm like, I'm not really worried about any of those people. I'm like, I'm going to surpass them way quicker than anyone imagines.
Excellent.
But it's the workforce that's behind me. People all the time are like, wow, you've done so well. I'm like, I haven't done well. My team has done well. They're the ones that are the minds that have made this all work. But I hire people strictly off of work ethic. No one here even has a marketing background.
Not even close.
Nowhere close to it. And I remember when I sat down with Ricky and Lauren and I'm going over everything, Lauren was terrified and Ricky's telling me this. He's like, Lauren won't say anything, but she's scared because she doesn't have a marketing background. I'm like, I don't care. You guys work hard.
That's awesome.
We'll figure it out.
I've always said, one of the things that drew me to the car business, and I know it drew him, and I mean, it drew us together, was we love competition. We love competing. We love competing like gentlemen. We're not, cutthroat or anything. But once I realized, hey, you're not a competitor, well, it's not fun for me to compete with you anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We like that. And having that environment, I mean, that brings the best out of everybody.
There's no glory in beating somebody who doesn't want to present a challenge. Yeah. I mean,
there's also, if you're competing against somebody at that level, both are very successful. And if somebody ever comes that's surpassing us, I'm going to high five that person on the way by, because they are fucking killing it.
That's awesome.
And they are working their ass off. I want to find out where they're acquiring more time at, and figure it out, because we try to go way further past anyone of what they do.
Right.
To where then it's you bring that much value to the table. And it's the same thing in the car space. As a car dealership, I adjusted the processes. We adjusted all these different things to where people didn't feel like they're at a car dealership. We tried to bring the highest level of customer service, and we actually cared about our customers.
Right.
And when that in sales makes it really easy, but also makes growth and scalability happen by itself.
And I think that the smarter guys have figured out that, they're saying we care about our customers, we want to take care of our customers, and there's truth to that. And I think those of us who can admit it realize, okay, we're in a business that you're working 60, 78 hours a week. We want to take care of the customer because at the end of the day, it is about a paycheck. And that customer is that paycheck. And if you don't that's the greatest motivation in the world. I mean, when you read that people would rather go to the dentist than to a car dealership, it should be gut-wrenching to you. I mean, how can it be that bad? I mean, why would you not create an unbelievable atmosphere, an unbelievable culture for your customer to be invited into? Because that's your paycheck anyway. And some of us have sold cars to people that we're going to be friends with forever. But for the average guy who comes in, the invitation, the culture you want to create for that person is just appreciation. I mean, he's giving you I was never mad when I went through all our numbers and we were like, what did we miss? I was never mad at a customer who walked into my dealership, even if I missed him, even if I couldn't find a way to put it, because he gave me a shot. I was always mad at the guy down the street who never even came into my dealership. That was the guy who pissed me off.
That was my biggest pet peeve. And when I first got
shows.
No,
just give me a shot.
So the shot was, it's the same thing in marketing. Like it's the same thing in anything. And when we got into the car space, right when I got out of college, keep going. So right when I got out of college, I started in the dealership. I deck out my garage and everything, had big parties at. So all my college friends are coming over for parties, stuff like that. Yeah. I'm the only one in the neighborhood with kegs in the driveway and whatnot, having a great time. And it was probably 3 to 6 months out of college. One of my buddies rolls up in a car with temp tag on.
Uh-oh.
And I was like, that motherfucker ain't new.
Do you know me? You know what I do for a living?
I'm like, you know that you've never been to my house and never paid for anything. I go, you know I cover food for like 40 people to come over here. And I cover the booze for everyone to come over here. And I pay for all this stuff, and I didn't even get a shot.
Right.
If you give me a shot and I don't make it happen, it's okay. Yeah. That's my fault. But then, and I was like, you know what? This dude's not even coming to my house anymore. He's not invited. Like, dude's not invited.
Go see if the other dealership will have you in their garage.
Yeah, maybe you should go find a friend at the other dealership and go to his parties,
Drink off
okay?
his keg.
Yeah. So it was one of those things. My girlfriend's like, why do you get so bent out of shape on that? I'm like, because I didn't have a shot. I'm like, if I had a shot, like it ate away at me for a while. And it was probably another 6 months out of it. So about a year after I was out of college, I'm like, you know what? That was my fault because I wasn't doing a good enough job at staying in front of people to always be front of mind. So that's when the marketing piece came in. That fast forward 2 years after that, we'd have 40 people at our house, and every single one of those cars had a sticker from our dealership. I didn't miss shots after that.
Right on.
But it's like I had to shift what I was doing, and for a while there, I wanted to point a finger, and it was very much of like it was their fault. It was their fault. I'm like, you know what? Our marketing wasn't done well enough. And when he was there, he's like, dude, I just didn't even think about it. I got on, I jumped on Cars Guru. First deal I saw, I just went there. And I'm like, well, at that point,
I should have been the first person you thought of.
So then I was like, I have to readjust our marketing. But 2 years after that, there wasn't a human being that I know that wasn't thinking about what we were doing.
Right.
And we've done the same thing that we talk about all the time about everyone here, that anyone you know should know that you do marketing.
Absolutely.
Right.
They shouldn't even think twice about it. If they even have a thought in their head that they need to do marketing, you should be the first person that we at least get a shot.
Right on.
You should be proud of what you're doing because everybody. I always hated that when people were, well, I sell cars, but that's not what I am. Bullshit, man.
You sell cars.
You sell cars. It is what we are. It is what we are. I mean, and the competition is what you thrive on. Like I remember a month we had a Toyota store in the middle of Michigan, and we were killing it, right? And I had a great general sales manager, and I remember at the end of the month we sold like 250 new Toyotas, more than anyone ever had in Michigan and for Toyota. And he was and I said, yeah, but, and he goes, I know, David, how many cars did the Honda store sell in town? And I said, yep. And he goes, 37. It wasn't that we did 250 and they did 37. It was that they sold one. If we would have done 100 cars and they sold 0, I would have felt fulfilled. But they sold one. And so for me, it was, but that was the measurement, right? I mean, I didn't hate the guys at Honda.
It's that competitive nature.
Right. And I always believed in building a villain. Like, and I think the problem today with success for people, or how hard, when they find it's hard, is that they don't plan things out. I mean, if you're a 16-year-old or 17-year-old kid, the smartest thing you could do is say, okay, I know I have to get a certain amount of homework done. So I'm going to build my schedule, and I'm going to spend 2 hours getting the stuff done I need to do for my parents. And then I'm going to have 3 hours for me to play on the Xbox or to do whatever I want. But I'm going to schedule this time and realize the discipline of getting this done. And then you build that as you get older. But villains are important, right? I mean, back in the day, it was dragons that you had to beat a dragon in order to get the girl that he held in the back of the cave, right? I mean, so for there to be a villain for you, I think is really important for success, because we can all say, oh, I'm so self-motivated. I'm just going to be successful because of me. Man, if there's not something to slay, if there's not something to beat and take down, what's it worth for? And we joke, all the time, especially with Ricky, because of the gym background. Like, I don't want to, when I go into when I go into the gym and I'm lifting, I'm not thinking about, oh man, I want to, get even more fit. I think if we go to war, I want them to put me out in front and let the other team look across and say, that's who we're going to battle with? Yeah, no, screw that shit, right? But that, you know what I mean? Because there always has to be a villain for me to conquer, to succeed. And I think if you can organize yourself and when you're young and realize, okay, this is the time I need to set, I have to be disciplined, and you know what your goal is, and you can find that villain, and then you just, as you get more money or more success, you just find better villains, right? And and one day maybe you get a villain off against Elon Musk or something, and then you really
that'd be
right,
cool.
right, yeah. So
who is Elon Musk? Who is he villaining after?
Bezos.
Bezos?
yeah, it was Bezos until he stomped him. So now
maybe
now it's Jesus.
Yeah,
It might be.
Maybe. Now he's trying to find somebody on a different planet to go after.
Right. Yeah, the guy's in Mars.
Yeah, he's like, I got the Earth conquered.
I love your comparison there, the whole villain aspect. I mean, something that I realized too is like, not like you can be your own villain, but I mean, a lot of times most people's villain, their real villain in life, is something they're doing themselves. So, kudos for that.
I remember my dad. My dad was an unbelievably great father. I mean, just a good guy. And he would say things. Every parent will say stuff to you like, well, you know, if you go out there and you're in track and you just beat yourself every day, you're going to really, man, I'm easy to beat. I don't want to beat me. I want to beat the best guy out there. Who's the best guy? You know, we always talk about who's the GOAT. You know, is it LeBron James or Michael Jordan? And I always say, well, there's 10 guys better than Michael Jordan in the league today, but they're better because of Michael Jordan. You know, when Roger Bannister broke the mile record, the 4-minute mile record, no one had ever done it. The day he did it, within a year, 10 people did it. 10 people did it because it was done. And so, you know, that's just the progression, right? Is that you have to have the villain, you've got to have the competition. It all comes around winning, you know, always. It's always about winning.
And I think there's the generations coming up have taken out this winning factor of everything.
Oh yeah,
and
trophies for everybody.
Trophies for everyone. Just know, like, everyone's a winner. Blah blah blah. Everyone's not a winner. There's winners and there's losers. Like, just flat out. But I feel like there's so many things. I feel like people create their own villains. That I think one of the biggest villains that I see in just general people is sleep. Like, it is one of those things that people will trade. Too much? Yeah, they just trade anything for, like, we talk about going to the gym in the morning. Like, Ricky is better at it than I am, but it's like I've got this, and it's happened over the last year where it's like I get up every single morning at 5:30 now and I go to the gym. Like, it's just is what it is. The only excuse I have not to go to the gym at 5:30 is I want to sleep more. That's it. Like, there's nothing else I can make an excuse for. And that's the only excuse that is on me. At night, if you're like, hey, you want to go out to dinner tonight and everything, 8 o'clock tonight, then I'm like, okay, you know, I'm not going to go to the gym because we're going out to dinner. And then there's so many things that come up in the evening time that come up all week long, but I'm not going to hit you up, go to breakfast at 5.
Right.
Like, it becomes one of those things that people don't make time for all these other things. And then it's, well, I was tired. Like,
we've created a group of excuses. I mean, it starts with how bad our examples are. When you were like 15 years old and life you knew your life sucked, right? And you knew things were confusing. But then your uncle would say to you, man, I wish I was 15. This is the best time of your life. You're so lucky to be 15. And I'm thinking, this is the best time of my life.
Bullshit.
I can't drink.
Down
I got a curfew.
Yeah.
This is the best. Kill me now.
Yeah. I don't want to see what's coming after this.
Yeah.
And the other thing that always bothered me was when we because we want to be accepting of everybody and tolerant of everybody, and I get that, and I always say you can win even if you don't come in first place, because if you did everything you were supposed to do and you came in second to a guy who beat you today, but tomorrow you can go after him again, you didn't lose. You don't have to just be winners or losers. There can be a lot of winners in something as long as you're truly giving everything and learning and growing. But what we'll say to people is, oh, you're perfect just the way you are. You're saying that to a 17-year-old kid or a 15-year-old kid. Hey, don't worry about it. You are exactly how you are. You're perfect. That kid is thinking, bullshit, man. I am so confused about what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't understand any of this. And you're telling me that I'm okay, that this is normal. No wonder we have so much mental illness that we're playing with. I'm okay? Man, I thought I was like, you know, I didn't know if I was a boy or a girl or what I was, but you're telling me I'm okay. I guess I'm okay. This is normal. Yeah. It isn't normal. We need to, I think for the younger people, we can help people figure this out is it's okay to look at someone you admire and try to copy that person and try to figure out, okay, that person has what I want. Why would I not want to copy that person?
Why would I not want to do exactly what they're doing?
Why would I not want to do exactly what he's doing and admire that person to achieve what he's achieved, and maybe along the way work a little harder than he did and even get more. But yeah, I mean, it all comes down to that. We create these excuses and this laziness to succeed, and we accept it as a society that it's okay to be,
it's okay to be okay. Like, everyone says it's okay. And it's like, same thing with, I think it's happening with body and fitness space and everything where everyone's okay. It's like, no, there comes to a problem. Like, when you're that overweight, there's health issues. Like, you can't say that's okay. Like, I know that you don't want to, like, shame somebody for being out of shape. And it's something that they can fix. And that's where I come into a lot of problems. And am I in the best shape in the room? No. I'm not trying to be in the best shape in the room, but I'm
with Ricky.
Yeah, especially when we're with Ricky. But it's like, it helps me a lot with my headspace, my motivation, my drive, everything like that.
It's just a way you hold yourself accountable too.
Yeah,
I mean,
but you have a win before anyone else has even gotten up in the morning.
Right.
I'm already taking wins before someone's gotten out of bed.
bingo. That's awesome.
So when you start stacking those
Your
up all the time,
momentum's rolling.
it's like when I get to work, I'm ready to roll.
That's
Like,
awesome.
I'm good. And I feel like so many people just take fucking L's all day, every day. And it's like it just becomes this like laundry list of excuses. And it's okay that I'm 350 pounds. That's fine in today's world. I'm like, no, you have to go to the hospital every week to try to get all this blood pressure and all this other stuff done. I don't know what it's like to weigh that. So I don't know what all they get done at the hospital, but they're always going to a doctor to check on these things. It's like, wouldn't you rather live a healthier lifestyle and live a longer life? Because you're not outliving anyone.
Right.
And that's something that person has to look in the mirror and accept for themselves.
And I think, but like you said, I mean, we create we accept it. We're like, oh, it's okay that you're 400 pounds. It's like, it's so contradicting and hypocritical. I mean, a year ago, we were giving everybody crap because they weren't wearing a mask, because if they chose not to wear a mask. Well, I assure you, diabetes and obesity is killing a lot more people over the next 20 years than COVID is going to kill over the next 20 years.
Definitely.
But then we act like
100%.
it doesn't matter. So you have a 300-pound person yelling at you because you're not wearing a mask, and he's wearing a mask. And I mean, and ultimately the goal is always to die young at a very old age, right? I mean, that's always the ultimate goal. But, you have to set your life up where you are the only excuse that's acceptable for failure. If I fail and it's my fault, then that's on me. I just refuse to have it be anyone else's fault today or any time in history that I failed because of anything. If I fail, it's because I failed. If I succeed, it's because I succeeded.
Which that's one thing that I will say across every business owner, every successful business owner I have spoke with, that is the exact same mindset that everyone has. When you sit with a business owner and there becomes an issue with something, the first thing is like, well, so-and-so, like that was in the car space, I would have salespeople.
You're the owner. What do you do?
Exactly. So it's like, no matter what it was, and you know how many times I would be like, oh yeah, like I apologize, that was my fault. And they're like, you didn't even know about this. Yeah, I didn't do my job training that person correctly to handle this. So it's still my fault.
Good.
Like,
That's awesome.
it has to be handled. And whatever that is, and when you have that mindset, because it's not an excuse, me telling that person that it's your fault, that's just an excuse to where it's not mine.
I was going to say, you can own something on paper and be the owner, but as soon as you start
Yeah.
doing that, somebody else owns your building. You
Yeah,
just
and-
don't know it. There's somebody else that runs it.
I just hate that mentality that anybody that, like, I mean, we've messed up on marketing accounts. Like, it happens.
Right.
And I've dropped the ball on a lot of things. And I've told people, I'm like, straight up, I apologize. I had like 8 companies text me today, this, and that. I didn't get this sent over. My fault.
And I think when you're a manager in upper management and you're managing people, even when you're managing your own life, I think it's important to realize, okay, I have to realize I'm going to be held accountable for shit that's going to happen that isn't even my fault. It's stuff that happened I don't even really have any business dealing with in a day-to-day, even if I'm the main boss, because there's some things I don't need to be involved with, right? I mean, it's
Man.
like, a lot.
That's a big gap right there, though.
It's a huge gap.
I mean, here's the thing: is our newest generation. We can't even take responsibility for our actions.
Oh, yeah.
How the hell are these kids? When they
Yeah.
step up to
It's-
management, how are they going to take?
I don't know where the managers are going to come from.
Right.
That's
We're done.
my deal. Is
We're
like,
done, buddy.
This management level, I don't know where it's going to come from. And the people that are younger, that are stepping into these management positions, are getting paid astronomical amounts of money
Compared
across
to what they're doing,
all
too.
industries.
Yeah.
And it's something that it's just a lost space to lead people. And when you do that, though, people gain a respect for you.
Yeah.
So you have Mr. XYZ or whatever, and you take responsibility, and that person's like, they just didn't point at me, that was my fault, and throw me under the bus. That's like you have somebody that works for you, and you're like, you know what, out of the bus, I'm going to run your ass over. Not my fault. But then when you take that accountability all the time, they're like, they start learning to take accountability also. And I think that's something that is people following a manager or something like that. They learn that from following someone. Like, I learned it from my dad. My dad's very good at taking accountability for everything he does. He's like, don't you ever point a finger at someone else for anything.
Yeah.
He goes, I don't care what it is.
That's awesome.
I think that's important, and I think that realizing that, okay, you really only have one person in the company you have to get rid of, right? So as you have to, if you cannot assume that every single person in your organization has the best intentions for the business or the best intention for the customer. And every decision they made was what they thought was best for the customer or best for you, for the dealer or whatever, whatever business. If you can't trust that, if they can make decisions and you can't trust that they made that bad decision, but in their heart, they thought it was best for you or for the customer, that's a bad seat. Okay. But every other manager, every other employee, you have to be able to go in and believe that, okay, they made a mistake and I can teach them from that mistake because I know deep down their heart was, they thought this was best for the customer. They thought this was best for the business. And I think 80% of the people fall under that. Now, will they become leaders? No, because that's a smaller percentage. But 20% of the group, you're always going to constantly be realizing these people don't give a crap about my customer. They don't give a crap about the business. Be gone.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's on a spectrum as a whole. I mean, working with a ton of car dealers in that space, I feel like it's so big on, my dad's always told my brother and I, lack of execution or lack of knowledge. So you can get mad at someone for lack of execution, but you can't get mad at someone for lack of knowledge.
True.
So if somebody doesn't know how to go out and pencil a deal correctly, I'm not going to flip out on them. I'm not going to get pissed off. But if I tell someone how to do something 4 times and they keep messing it up, you know what? Now it's time to
sidebar.
You're just, it's not the knowledge side of it. You're just not executing it correctly.
Right.
So it's a completely different forefront.
It's almost malice at that point. It's almost it's almost intentional that they don't want it to go the way it's supposed to go.
But I feel like there's so many dealers and businesses and everything like that. They just throw people in the fire, then they have no knowledge of what they're supposed to do. And that's goes right back into why I hire people that don't have a marketing background. I don't want people coming in with some other marketing company that isn't doing as well as us being like, hey, we need to do stuff this
I'm the
way.
same way, man. That's awesome.
No, we have it this way, and this is how we're going to do it. And I'm going to train you, and I'm going to teach you how we're going to do it, and we're always going to get better, and we're never going to act like we know it all because the market's ever evolving. Same thing with car space. Same with the car space 10 years ago to now on what that process looks like is just way different.
Yeah, we have an evolving customer. The customer is constantly interested and excited by different things. So it constantly changes because the customer is constantly challenging, us. We live in a time, for the first time in history, where the poorest person in America is 600 times wealthier than the wealthiest person was in the 1920s, right? I mean, it's such an incredible luxury we have that we take for granted. But, we also live in a time where today a husband and wife both have to work to provide for a household that in the 50s, the husband used to go and provide for the entire family, right? So, I mean, the corporate world's got us kind of figured out, right? They doubled their work, their work
force.
Workforce, thank you. Their workforce, and paid out the same, and then gave us 600,000 new items we need to also own if you want to be cool to go out and challenge, right? So, I mean, it's a constantly changing buyer and a constantly changing customer. So, like I said, if you're trapped in a one way of thinking and you're not watching what everybody else is doing, you can ask the average salesperson how many books they read this year, and when they tell you 0, because that's the normal answer, ask them how many they've read in the last 5. Ask them how many books they've read about businesses besides the car business. Ask them how many books they've read, from businesses that have nothing to do with what they're doing. Just because the next great idea, it's already out there. So the next great idea for marketing, it's already out there. It's just not in the marketing world.
Yeah.
The next great idea for the car business is already out there. It just isn't in the car business. Somebody else has that idea. Someone else has found it. But if you're not looking for it and searching for it, because if you think you're going to create it, people are really, I don't want to go too crazy on this, but people are really weird. There's only a few ways that we think, right? Most of us think as we have conversation. We have conversation, we hear what we're saying, it gets challenged by other people, and all of a sudden we realize, okay, that wasn't a great idea, but now I've turned it into a great idea, right? Some people literally can, in their own mind, before they say anything, they can negotiate their idea, they can debate their own idea, they can create their own idea, and literally go back and forth in their head and create and come out and say the perfect idea. Okay, that's Socrates, man. None of us are Socrates, right? For most of us, our great ideas are going to come from communication and from talking and from reading and learning other businesses where someone else has an idea. So if we're not doing that, if we're just trying to stay inside our own little shell, you're never going to come up with that next great idea that's already there.
We're just not that original.
We're just not.
Quit trying.
The other thing that
you don't need to be.
No, you don't.
I think the other thing that's so crazy is, I mean, anyone watching can take this and go open any business that you want around here. But if you watch the coast and you watch Texas and you watch everyone around, the Midwest is always 5 to 10 years behind.
Always.
So I don't know how many people like just don't watch that and just don't even like understand that. But like at the car dealership I was at, the marketing stuff I was doing was nothing new. It wasn't like I was like in my bed, I was like, pew, 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 pew. Like came up with this crazy idea that I'm going to do all this shit. I'm like watching these huge auto groups on the coast and in Texas, everywhere like this, in these huge markets of what they're doing. I'm like, I'm going to implement that here. Everyone's like, oh my God, you're like cutting edge on all this stuff. I'm like, the hell are you talking about? I'm like, no, the people are doing this all over. Just no one's doing it here.
Right.
And
That's
it's like,
awesome.
you do something that's, once again, it wasn't like some crazy new idea that I had. And when we brought video into the space here, like still no one's even really messing with it that hard here. And we're like the only ones that are messing with it. Coast, I mean, if you even talk to a marketing company that doesn't have, like, if they're not offering video with it, I mean, hang it up. Like, and it was just something that I thought was such a void in market. That I feel like there's so many voids in market in the Midwest that we talk about all the time. Like, they're all around me to keep me honed in on one lane because I'm like, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. Like, and it's because my head just runs like 4,000 miles an hour all the time. And they're not bad ideas. It's just you have to be really good, like, at this thing.
Yeah.
But there's all these things in businesses, and I mean, look at the restaurant scene in Kansas City in the last few years, where this hipster style restaurant that you go to out in Denver, you're like, wow, like, why don't we have these in Kansas? And then everyone comes to Kansas City and they're like, I have no idea why there's a line outside this place all day long. Like, yeah, because it already works over there.
Right.
They just put one here.
Yeah.
It goes back to, well, I have, 2 kids, and I waited till the day that, my daughter came to me and she said to me, hey, we just learned in school today, if you find something you love to do, you'll never work again. And I remember saying, oh my God, I couldn't wait for you to say that, because let me tell you how life works. Okay? You have a set of weaknesses and you have a set of strengths. And
I gotta go pay parking real quick.
And no matter how hard you work at weaknesses, it's only going to get, your weaknesses are only, man, I might be able to get my weakness to average. Who's ever been rich on average?
Nobody.
Right. Okay. So my strengths, though, I can make my strengths so good, so strong, so much better than everybody else, right? So I always would tell my kids that find something you can tolerate, that you could be exceptional at. You don't have to do it forever, because you can make so much money at it if you're exceptional, that when you're in your late 30s, you can literally say, I'm done. Now I'm going to go do something I want to do, and I'm going to make mud pies. And mud pies pays $0. Nobody's buying mud pies, right? But if I love to make mud pies, I can do that after I have my fortune, right? But you have to find something that you can be good at, so good to be better at than anybody else can be, and focus on that. You just have to tolerate. And the fact is, most of us end up finding that, or I think the successful people end up finding something that they're incredibly good at, that they didn't think they liked, and then all of a sudden they love it because it challenges them, it keeps them constantly on their toes, and the competition, and that's what makes it. I mean, nobody woke up and said, I want to be a marketing director. Nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to be a car salesman one day. That's what I want to be, right?
That's the dream.
Right, we all want to be astronauts and, and dragon slayers. But we become, when we get into it, especially when it comes to competitive sales, it's such a motivator. You end up loving it, and you can be successful at it. But it really comes down to so I always try to encourage younger people when I talk to them, don't worry about your weaknesses. Man, I mean, so what? You get those to average. You're going to be poor. Work on your strengths. Make your strengths better than anybody else, and find something you can tolerate to do and be better at it than anybody else. And then you'll be successful, because then you have a shot, man. I mean, why would Patrick Mahomes is probably going to be the greatest quarterback in history. I know he was really good at baseball too. Why would he go today? Why would he go and play golf? He'd probably be a good golfer, but why would he change careers instead of doing, even if he liked golf better than he liked football? He's clearly the best football player. Why would he play golf? And I think we don't encourage kids. whatever you decide you want to do until they become gender study majors or art. And
well, the problem is a lot of times too, like I went to my girlfriend's cousin went to school out in California and stuff, and we went to one of their graduations, and they had so many college degrees there that were coming across that were just the most random off the wall things I'm like, you get a degree in this stuff? I'm like,
it's crazy.
I'm like, I don't know of a landscaper in Missouri that has a degree. Like, what did they come here for? Like, you learn that shit out in the field. And same thing when I went to college, my dad pushed my brother and I both to go to college, and he said, if you guys ever want to work full time at the dealership, you have to go to college. College was great on learning how to grow up, and probably the main thing I took out of that was time management. I mean, I go into college at 17 years old, and I mean, I thought I was just the busiest human being on the planet. Like, I don't know how, like, I could handle everything that I had. Now I look back and I was like, all I had was time. And in college, I started like getting more involved and more involved and more involved, and it got to where like, I'm like, I got to put this stuff on a calendar. I got to start figuring out my time. Like, I got to make more time. I got to be better. I got to start going to the gym earlier. I have to do all these things differently. And then when it came into the workforce, it wasn't hard to adapt to long hours and sacrificing all that time. And I think so many people on the college side go in and they end up with some degree that's worthless. They get out and they have to pay for it.
Or now we have to pay for it.
Or now we have to pay for it. But it's something that's like, well, go for something that you really love. I really love drawing, whatever. Like, and I end up with a fucking art degree and I can't get paid. Right. And then it's like, now we have to pay for it.
Right.
But when I was in college, I really wanted to work at the car dealership. That's what I wanted to do. My dad had put me through every bit. I've done Joe Verde training like 3 times, front to back. He started put me through Grant Cardone training. I started going through all this sales training before I was even allowed to sell cars. I'm coming home from college, sitting at my dad's house, and he's making me listen to training. I'm doing like homework for the dealership while I'm in college, sitting in my dad's living room at home. But it's like, he goes, if you're going to do this, you're going to be the best at it.
Right.
And
that's the mindset, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm going to break this on your podcast. I had the solution to college debt and to student loans.
What was it?
I had the solution. Let the universities co-sign for the student loans.
I think that's the best idea, because when I went to college, the amount of people that were there freshman year that got all this financial aid that weren't there sophomore year, like, you know how many people have college debt from 1 or 2 years that don't have a degree?
The majority.
I would say that's probably 50 to 60% of the debt.
Right. That's the majority.
I don't know what that number stat is. Hey, Cody, you should search that for me. Cody, search the stat of how much
student
debt is out there on non-completed degrees.
Yeah, but if you made the university responsible for the debt, they would limit the degrees, and they would test you and say, "Oh, Ricky, you're really good in science. I know you really want to become a history major, but you kind of suck in history, so we're going to co-sign for you if it's something to do with science. If not, you're going to have to pay for it on yourself." I would guarantee you'd solve the problem in 6 seconds. I mean, it's so dumb. I mean, it's outpaced everything for inflation ever, because it's the government's essentially paying for it.
Yeah. The cost of college now, like, you look at it,
it's incredible.
If we did the same thing with automobiles, cars would be $1 million now.
Tell me something you could do. Tell me a product you can sell me that performs as poorly as a college degree does, as most of the degrees. Like when you went to California, you saw all these degrees that you know aren't even going to be
like
using.
Flower counters.
Right,
like, I don't know, probably something out there.
Right.
I'm gonna count flowers. Go to college.
So tell me something you could sell me as a product that customers would have that bad of an experience buying, and you could stay in business.
Nothing. Tell me something else on the planet
The
that
DMV.
literally every single person out there can get approved for.
Right. At 18, and now not be held responsible for it. But let the universities co-sign for student loans, and if they did, I promise you, the degrees that were available would be very limited, and you'd be getting a degree. You know, we joke about the education system, but that's my same debate about, you know, if someone's 25 years old and they decide they're going to live life better as a man or as a woman, and they decide to live their life that way, man, I got no problem with that. I mean, you're 25 years old, you're not affecting anybody. Do what you want to do. If you're 12 or 13. Okay, man, we don't let 12 or 13-year-olds vote. I mean, you can't even get a driver's license. I mean, there's a lot of things you can't do. So, you know, slow down. But the problem is, I think most people have that they're teaching the stuff in school, like 5, 6, and 7-year-old kids need to know about gender. I don't know. What do we rank in math in the world?
Not very high.
How about science?
Those are my 2 strong subjects. I wasn't the best reader in class.
You're holding the team.
I'm no Mark Twain writer over here, but math and science are my strongest subjects.
As a country, how do we rank against the rest of the world?
I think it's probably 20-ish, 19, 18,
they're
something
pretty
like that.
bad. So if we were number 1 in all those categories, I think putting more on the teachers to teach more of our kids, you'd want that. Well, we're number 1 in math, number 1 in science. Can we be number 1 in this? But we suck. And
When I was in college,
we're going to teach them shit that has nothing to do with getting a job.
When I was in college and I got to high level, like Calc 2 classes and everything like that, I was the only American in my class that it was foreign exchange students.
Where'd you go to school at?
Northwest Missouri State.
Okay. Wow.
And
I took a Calc 2 in high school. Just throwing that out there.
mine was probably like advanced Calc 2 or something. I don't know.
My mother was valedictorian of her high school, so somewhere there's smart genes in me.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw that out there.
I don't.
I used a calculator before.
Yeah.
Who needs them?
I love when we were in school and they're like, you're never going to have something in your hand that you can do all this on. I'm like, oh, yeah?
Now it's on your watch.
I can do it on my watch, too.
And now you can translate like Japanese on like in milliseconds, you know? That's crazy.
The funny part is have we gotten smarter
No.
as a people? We have all the knowledge. It used to be knowledge is power. So now we have all the knowledge in the entire world, and I think.
But what is
people are
knowledge, though?
Yeah,
Our knowledge now is more functionality knowledge. I know how to use this. I don't know how to create it. Dude, there's 3-year-olds that can show you the programming, on this
All
phone.
I'm saying is,
but no one can make one.
How does the camera work? When you click picture and who's inside your phone
Right.
drawing that picture?
Yeah, but that's I guess
Little
what I'm
people with
saying.
very little feet, they're running around working on it all.
The intelligence now, though, is being a functional intelligence. It's not learning
who's
behind
making
the scenes.
sure these people who actually know how to do this, who's making sure they're having kids to continue on this?
We've got robots that build them now.
I hope so.
But that's where I'm like very iffy on like where the knowledge line sits. Like there's people that I've ran into that have much higher degrees than me that I do 1,000 times better than they do in life.
Oh, yeah.
I live a much happier life, much more successful in business, money-wise, financially, whatever it is. But these people are like, you're dumb. Like they think that they have this like pedestal that they stand on. But I feel like there's something that, what's the end goal for that?
On the flip side of that, if shit ever hit the fan, there's some farmer that doesn't know the periodic table that's going to stay alive longer than everyone in this room.
That's very
Exactly.
true.
That there's some of the smartest and most successful people I know are some people that I know that can barely even read.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like,
What it proves, it goes back to the original thing we talked about, being competitive, wanting to win. These people might have 2 PhDs and can't talk to you, and you're more successful, you're a happier person than they are, but they want to tell you how dumb you are and how you're not smart enough to be able to have an opinion on certain matters, but yet they're not. They can't even compete. They can't even win their own class.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, hey, we're in a world where you are measured by your happiness of life, by how much money you can make, because it is a measurement stick. And I think most people that you find who aren't living paycheck to paycheck, they realize money is more of a measurement. It's like
I've came to a spot where money means absolutely nothing to me. It is a tool, but money is also something that leverages time. And time is the most valuable thing. They talk about Steve Jobs and all these other people that have gotten to that point. There's not a dollars and cents that they can put on to buy any more time. You can have all the money in the world.
But I will promise you, Steve Jobs would want less, or Bill Gates would want less time if he was broke. So there is a balance there.
There's a balance.
I mean, how long do you want to live your life if you're poor and broke and have nothing? Probably a lot less than if I'm rich. Of course, if I'm super filthy rich, why would I ever want life to end, right? I would buy all the time I could because I know how great life is because I do have money. And people can sit back and say money isn't a measure of happiness, and it doesn't hurt it.
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt it.
I will say that with a lot of business owners we've crossed, there's some people that I know with the most amount of money that are some of the most unhappy people I have ever met. And it's like, I feel like success is measured with there's a lot of different measurements with it. That it's not one set ruler, that this is the only measurement. you have centimeters on one side, you have inches on the other side. You have happiness on one side, you have finances on the other.
It's a balance,
and that
for sure.
You watch these celebrities that have life by the balls with all the money you could imagine, and they're shaving their heads and going off the deep end. But it's like one of those things that you're like, how does this happen? And I was watching something the other day on Justin Bieber. It was like something on Facebook or some shit on just the deep end that he's went off. And you see him, he looks like a tweaker.
Yeah.
And it's like, I told my girlfriend, I was like, I wouldn't trade anything in the world to be that dude right now.
But
I was like, I enjoy
he's going through some medical stuff, just to be clear. I think
he has his face thing now,
Yeah.
but this was before that.
Okay.
I mean,
I feel bad now.
Yeah, I'm not saying like, but it was before that.
But some of that's the attention they lose, right? Because part of the, again, for me, money's a measurement. It literally is. I don't care about the money as much as I do that I realize if I made more than you did on a certain subject, I won.
Yes.
Right? I mean, you give the money back. I don't care.
Yeah.
I because it's almost like a scoreboard, right? But I think like you take somebody like Justin, Bieber, or someone like, Britney Spears, comes to head, right? I think for them, it's the loss of the attention. Okay, they have all this money, but the money was great, but it wasn't the money meant. The money was the measurement. It was the attention they were receiving from the public. Everybody was talking about. They were always there, and now they're not. And that this is like athletes from Division I schools who they're going to go in the NFL. They're going to go to the pros, and then they go to the Senior Bowl to show off, and they bust their knee over, and they can never play again. Can you imagine having millions of dollars that close to you with the one thing that you were probably really, really good at, and then all of a sudden it was taken from you, right? And that's why if you ever follow any of those stories, they're incredibly depressing. I mean, you guys had one in Oskaloosa who committed suicide on his yard, I believe. But it is incredibly depressing because these are people who are going to go pro athletes, or it was right there. And that one injury, I mean, it took everything they had. And I mean, it took everything out of reach. And I think that for those celebrities, the look at me people, I think once they lose that attention and they're not the person everybody's talking about all the time, they're going to shave their head and spread their legs getting out of limos so they can get back on TV.
I would say the other thing that goes with that is you lose the progression. Like if you keep progressing in something, whether you are at level 3 or level 55, right, if you're making that progress every day, you're going to be happy because you're getting closer to whatever it is you're trying to get to.
Stagnance is
if you have that stardom at such an early age, it's like, well, where do you go from there? And a lot of people, there are some that are able to get to that next level, but a lot of them just kind of fall off from there. And then they're always comparing it to that peak.
Have you seen that new Elvis movie?
Yes.
Kind of, great.
100%.
Great movie.
The perfect example of it.
But I think, in taking that back to business, I think that's why so many people do love the, like the car business, right? Because it's you start adding all these customers in your database, but then the growth is, what do you do with this database, right? How do I grow it and continue to have more and sell more and make my database bigger? And that's,
some people look at it that way, and some people they're like riding a roller coaster, just
right.
Like woo! I'm just like, they're just along for the ride of their life.
And that's your 80%er,
yeah,
right? That's
exactly.
The guys who they just, whatever the market does, they do, rather than really planning ahead for
Yeah.
it. But But that's what the best thing about, I call it sales. I mean, we're all in the customer relation business, right? It's all sales. You're selling yourself, you're selling your product, you're selling whatever you're selling. But like we were talking about earlier, we're such laydowns for
being sold.
For being sold, right? I mean, it's like, and I think most of us as people who live around in the middle, right, the moderate and that area, most of us, man, we just want to hear the good story, right? I mean, like, I'll give a homeless guy $10 because that story was so great. Not that I believe he's homeless or because I think it helps him, but sometimes the story is so fantastic, you're just like, okay, that was so good.
Yeah.
Have you tried writing?
Yeah, right. That's fantastic.
You should be an author, actually.
You should record these. I mean, and go on Rogan. These are fantastic.
And that's the crazy thing was when we moved our office down here, that in Liberty, where I live, there's homeless people that I don't believe are real homeless people. And I never gave any of those people any money. We have homeless people down here.
You can tell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's people, they're the ones that don't ask for anything. They're the people that are just down here. And it's like, I talk to the restaurants down here and they help them out, like giving water to them, stuff like that. And then I buy them gift cards for the restaurants down here when I'm at those places. I don't give them to them. I just tell them, hey, next time that person comes here, I want to give X amount of dollars. Give them a $50 gift card to eat. and different things like that. But it's also, I think it's changed my perspective a lot on a lot of things since we moved down here, because the area we were in before this, we were in my basement. I live in a nice neighborhood, things like that. I mean, I didn't see that stuff every day. So it wasn't even really ever entering my mind. I'm like, we're working, we're doing things, we're making a business, we're doing our thing, and we go walk around the neighborhood, do whatever, and going to hunt whiskey and whatnot. And then we come down here, and it's like I drive in every single morning, I see all these people like.
Don't you appreciate being a little bit more in the real world?
It's like I drive down here, and I'm like, every single morning when I'm pulling in, I'm like, we're fucking doing it.
There's grit.
And it's like I feel so fortunate for health. Every single morning when I drive in, and it's like that's probably the thing I like the most about where we office now, is just that minute I get each morning before I come in that kind of hones me back down to say, hey, it's like, you know what, no matter whatever happens, we still have it really, really good. And it's like, I'm very thankful for every single thing that comes my way every single day. And it's just crazy on how much that can happen just seeing that stuff. Yeah.
And I think I love that idea that you buy the gift cards at the restaurants for them to use. Because I used to take the same exit to work every day, and every day there was a homeless person with a sign needing help. And every single day I had a dealership literally a block from that spot. And every day I'd pull over and hand a business card and said, if you show up, I will give you a job today. And never once over 5 years did one ever come. And that really tainted me on all of it, right? I mean, it just made you, but I love that idea that, because sometimes, if you give them food, like, you're walking down Chicago and you give someone your leftover Geno's Pizza, they get mad that you're offering them food instead of cash. And then you're like, okay, well, how I mean,
we had one homeless guy down here that no shit. So it's just something I am a firm believer, good things happen to good people.
Absolutely.
So good, bad, and different. If that person is bullshitting me or whatever, I'm still going to do the right thing.
Right on.
And is it going to pay off on that person every time? No, but guess what? There is going to be a person that does need it. I'm not going to let that person that was bullshitting me jeopardize that person that does need it. So it's just, I always do the right thing.
Right.
One day we were walking up from the river market and we're coming up. There's an older gentleman sitting there. He's probably his 70s at least. And he was eating a can of cat food. And I just bought all this food and everything. And I walked by him and I start registering in my head. I'm like, always do the right thing. Turn around and go back and give him my whole entire bag of food. He's like, man, I can't thank you enough. He's like, God bless and everything. And I'm like, so I walk back on. They're like, what are you going to eat? I'm like, I'm going to DoorDash something when I get back to the office. I have money. I can buy more food. It was just like that one thing. And then Dre and Ricky and them are all walking up, and this guy's out there, and they go to give him food. He's like, is there meat in that? And they're like, yeah. He's like, well, I'm a vegetarian. I'm like, get out of here. They come up, they're like, we're trying to give the guy food out there, and he's a vegetarian.
That's a tough life.
Yeah. It actually happened
you need
2
the
occasions.
Protein. You need the protein.
That's tough. That's a vegan homeless person. I mean,
I don't think he's really homeless. I think he just camps out here all the time because
he likes living in a tent. He likes sleeping in a tent.
And I mean, that's a tough. And he's CrossFitter. So I mean, you've got a lot going on in this guy.
Yeah, it was just kind of funny that they came up and it was like, I go give this guy food, and that was like my interaction of the whole thing. Of this was 2 completely different people,
right?
And then they come up and it's like,
he wouldn't even take it.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm always
tried to
very
do the
much,
right
and I'm
thing.
like, I tell them like,
He said meat is murder and threw it at me.
yeah, I'm like, they're like, we tried to give the homeless guy food, and he says he's a vegetarian or some shit.
Wow.
And I'm
I
like,
still got queso on my shirt.
yeah. I'm like, well, I was trying to do the right thing. You guys tried to, and it didn't.
That's funny.
But it's just always, I don't know.
But I think it's important to always do the right thing. And I think the majority of people do. It's the same thing. I think the majority of people are in the middle. And
I think the majority of people do not do the right thing.
No, they don't.
I watch this shit all the time, everywhere.
But I think it's because they only hear the news from the extreme one side or the other, right? I mean, it's like believing that, like every conservative is I don't know. I mean, it's like super pro life, 100% every single time. They, no excuse, and every single left person is They want to kill babies until they're 3 years old, and and somewhere in the middle lies the truth. But I mean, when you're in the middle and all you see is the one sides, you believe that every homeless person is a scammer. You believe that every homeless person is leaving, getting into their Lamborghini and driving home to their $3 million mansion that they're making off of you. And I think it's intentional. I think that the government sets that up so we're always in combat against each other, and that we don't believe.
I think that is definitely true. But I also think that, like, really with, like, meeting people all the time and
people like to be dirtbags.
But people really, like, are looking out for themselves all the time. Like, it is crazy how many people that I have been friends with or I thought I was friends with that aren't really friends. It's just like anytime something, I want to be that person that they're like, you know what, I'm friends with him, and my friend circle is very small. But if somebody calls me at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm jumping in the truck. I'm going to be anywhere for that person at that time. Like, no matter what, not even thinking twice. Like, it's same thing with somebody I don't even know on the street. If I pull in and somebody's on the side of the road hurt, I'm going to stop. It's one of the guys from the dealership that I was at. A van catches on fire on the side of the road, on the side of I-35. Everyone's just driving by. Van's fully engulfed in flames. He stops and pulls out an old guy that's on oxygen with his dog. Like, driving to the dealership, and he goes, you know how many people drove by? He goes, I was the only person that stopped. How many people do you think drove by doing 70 miles an hour there for how long with this van that started off the front of it on fire to the whole thing being on fire? And it's like, majority of people don't look out for other people, and they're very selfish.
And I think that the bigger city you are in, the more that's true. Because I think Ricky and even you being in Iowa I mean, I can tell you if you were in Hayes, Kansas,
it definitely gets
been 100 people pulled over.
100%. It definitely gets a lot better to the rural areas. I enjoy the rural areas a lot more.
Even then, though, like as time goes on, I grew up in Illinois. I went to high school in Aurora, Illinois, pretty big city. I think it's the second or third biggest city in Illinois. Large place. Plenty of crap out there, obviously. I moved to Iowa about 3 years ago, town of 8,000 people, and it's a lot better as far as your comfortability. I'm not worried about people breaking into my house and so on, normally. That being said, over the last 2 years, people have deteriorated, even in that little town. Yesterday on Facebook, in our Knoxville buy-sell trade page, my next-door neighbor had their door kicked in and ransacked between the hours of 7:30 in the morning and 5 p.m. They were gone at work, obviously. That's happening in towns of 8,000 people now, Yeah, that's pretty unsettling.
That is unsettling, and I still think there's a very small percentage in those small towns. And I think if somebody's car was pulled over, I mean, I just think I think in bigger cities there's a fear of something bad happening to you if you do stop to help. Because you hear about it's a setup. Yeah. And in small little towns, for the most part, people still help because that doesn't happen here. Yeah. But I think you're right though. I think there is a disconnect between doing the right thing and not caring.
And I think a lot of times there's a lot of people that do the right thing just because people are watching.
Oh, nobody's brave when nobody's watching.
Exactly. And I'm always like the first one that streetcar that sits across the road, that's somewhere that they give a lot of water, like homeless people. If I ever need like 10, 15 minutes of just time by myself, I go sit over there. Yeah. I'll get a coffee and I sit by myself. Any homeless person that comes up, I will buy a gift card from the train car to give to them. And I tell them I don't want it given to them until I'm gone. But it's just something that, like, I have no earthly idea who these people are. But it's just one of those things that nobody's watching it. I don't do it for people watching. I do it to help out another human being that could use it.
Right.
And I think there's so many people that it's like, well, if the highway was empty and this car is on fire, I'm probably just going to drive by. But maybe somebody's going to see me and I can get on the news, like some credit, shit. Right. Like, that's not, what did people do before TV and all this other
going viral
bullshit of trying to do something? Like, now they're out doing community service and they're on fucking FaceTime the whole entire time. I'm out helping so-and-so. Like, my brother and I go out and, like, help out with Habitat Humanity, and we're painting a house all day, sweating our asses off, all this. I'm not sitting there posting about it all goddamn day. I didn't post about it. Like, that's not why I did it. Somebody else needed help.
Right.
Go do it. It's not a public stunt to try to help our company.
I'll help you if it helps me.
Yeah, it's so many people are like, well, if you're not scratching my back, I'm not scratching yours. It's like, how about you just do the right fucking thing and then do it?
Right.
Just things will happen right. And so many people have came to me and they're like, you're just really lucky. I was like, no, just good things happen to good people. Just do the right thing all the time, and I think life just happens the way it's supposed to.
Right.
I don't know what the plan is, but
it could be karma, it could be religion, it could be anything.
Whatever it is, but it's
just do right, man.
Just
Put
do right.
positivity out there.
Yeah, so that's I think a lot of people, I mean, watching this or listening to this or anything, just in business and personal life, if you could just start doing the right thing more often.
Right.
I think that
Well, it goes a long way. It starts with each individual, right? I mean, if everybody picks it up and does it a little bit more, then it catches on.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's also building those requirements into people, especially young people, holding them accountable and realizing that we're part of the community, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're supposed to be. I mean, we're supposed to be part of you're supposed to have disagreements with people and not agree on every political term. That's what's great about it. And neither one of us goes to jail for it. Well, I mean, today maybe, right? But that's the idea, right? I mean, I mean, it's just being a better person every single day and trying to be somebody that you would be proud to live up to, right? I mean,
and I think people come to that. I always say that deathbed's not as far away as people think. And no matter what your age is, there's other things that can happen and things like that. You just have to be able to, like when I stepped out of the car space, it was something, if I looked back at myself on 3 years at that point, I would have been pissed. If I was in a car wreck on the drive home, and I was laying in a deathbed and they're like, hey, you're not going to make it through the night. Like that would have been the worst evening of my life, just because looking back on the last 3 years of what I had done, I wouldn't have been happy with myself.
And just to clarify, not that you're like doing anything wrong.
No,
you just
I wasn't doing everything right by the people around me and giving the most to the relationships of friends, family, girlfriend, everything like that. And I also wasn't living my life the way I wanted to. Yeah. It wasn't the way I wanted to where it's now if something happened to me on the drive home, like I would high five everyone and say, hey, I had a good run.
We did good, man.
Let's keep it rolling.
Right on. That's awesome.
Somebody once said to me that nobody on their deathbed, there are no atheists and there are no agnostics. When you're on your deathbed, you're praying.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so I think if you live that life knowing that, you know, whether you believe in God or whatever you believe in, if you believe in that someone's always watching, and if maybe that's just your conscience, if someone's watching what kind of person you're going to be today, we'd all be better people.
Yeah. You know? That goes across everything.
Everything.
So I think we've covered sales. We've covered just always be a good person. Covered business.
We handled student debt.
Yeah.
We handled it.
Fixed that.
Problem solved.
When I went to go pay parking, you guys handled student debt?
Handled it.
Oh, you did miss that part.
I mean, it was like 5 minutes.
We've had this conversation before.
Yeah. So it's fixed.
Yeah,
so
right on.
We're
That's fixed. Moving on.
Pass this video
Colleges
right
are
up.
co-signing, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Right, yes.
We're shooting.
Predatory lending is over.
We're going to shoot the podcast straight up to Washington so we can get that handled quickly.
We'll tag him
will
in
be
it.
handled like that instantly.
So hopefully 2 weeks that'll be fixed.
Yep.
You guys got a lot to look forward to.
Yep.
We got to hit your favorite question.
What would you tell yourself? I mean, you're still young like myself. I'm old. See, he's older. He's older than you.
What are you, like 31?
32.
What would you go back and tell yourself at 20 years old to do differently to change your life?
Man, I have been so blessed, man. I mean, I really have. There's not a lot of things I'd look at. I mean, there's some things that, you look at that maybe didn't work out 100%, but I think if those things don't, I always said one of the worst things that ever happened in my life is I got divorced, right? Because I felt it was a failure. But if it hadn't happened, it wouldn't have allowed me to be in the greatest relationship of my life, right? So it's hard to be upset that happened because it wouldn't have led me to where I'm at now. So I would tell myself that you think you worked hard. Did you give everything you had? I don't think you did. And just to enter every day knowing that, man, if I would have given just an extra 5 minutes to something, and I think going back to what we were talking about, being kind. I think there's times I could have been more kind. There's times I did only worry about myself and my own success as I was trying to build it and, wanted to push everybody out of the way to get it. I think there's times I could have been more kind, and I feel like I'm a pretty good person, a pretty generous person. But I feel like I don't think I'll be on my deathbed being sad that I didn't make more money. I think that I'll think that, man, was I somebody people would have looked up to and been proud of being associated with. And I think kindness is highly underrated. And I believe that it isn't happiness we're going for, it's joy.
Yep.
It's like total joy. And I think kindness is a easy roadmap to being joyful. So
Yep.
What about you, Nick? And I would say take it from the context of like, if you were talking to your 20-year-old self to be more successful and stuff like that.
Don't get that lower back tattoo. No, man. I think
Great
honestly, the thing that held me back was fear for the longest time. You know, it really took, and that'd be the other thing, the other part of it, you know, embrace change. But through every tragedy, you have the opportunity to fall flat on your face, or you have the opportunity to turn that into a platform for the next level. Make it that stepping stone. Tragedy will come. Make the most of it, and greatness will happen. You know, I waited way too long. I had to fall flat on my face a couple of times before I was like, this just isn't working. I need to take that leap. You know,
I tell people all the time, fear isn't real. Danger is real. Like you fall off a building, that's real. Fear is something that's made up in your head.
Yeah.
And fear isn't something that's real. Like I was the exact same way when I was younger. I think it's a fear of believing in yourself, of what you can do and the extents that you can go to. And then you look at the Elon Musk of the world, you look at all these other people, and it's like, I bet he had some fearful things to go through.
And I think that fear among ourselves, that we have this fear, I think what it is, it can be doubt, but I think it's also that you hear all these stories of other people failing, and you start thinking, well, what if that happens to me? Instead of, why not me? You know, why not me? Why not me? Why can't I be the successful one? I'll work for it. We start thinking, well, what if I'm one of those guys who it doesn't work for? And you get you're fear to take a chance, right? And I think that's why it's so important that everybody talks about someday, somehow, it's all going to work.
Yeah.
Right here, right now. That's your option.
Amen.
Right here, right now. How do I make it happen? I'm not going to wait. I try to, especially with younger salespeople and managers, I try to always make sure they're thinking, you haven't waited long enough. You haven't been poor long enough. You haven't suffered long enough. Right now, change it right now. And that's the best thing about any profession you're in. You can make tomorrow better than it was today and make it a constant improvement all the time. But you've got to want it, man. I mean, nobody can want it for you. Nobody's coming at you. Nobody's coming for you. And when I say nobody's coming for you, I mean nobody's coming to take your shit, but nobody's coming to help you either.
Yeah.
So right here, right now, take it. I mean, go get it.
Yeah. Don't be fearful.
No.
All made up.
Make them fear you.
I feel like those were both phenomenal.
That was
answers.
excellent.
Yeah.
And back tattoo's a bad idea.
Yeah. And
That's in general.
we're gonna tag below to make sure no one gets
That's the bonus tip.
Yeah. Very much appreciate both you guys coming on today.
Hey, I
think
appreciate you guys
it's
having
fun.
us, man. This was a
That's
good
normally
time.
my closing kind of question that I want everyone to be able to. I know it's a pretty loaded question too. That it's normally every time we ask, everyone's like, like, but
It needs to be asked.
it is, and it's something that I think you can always improve on yourself.
Absolutely.
You're always learning, always getting better, and that's most of the reason why people are sitting here talking with us, is because they've seen success in business. They've done these things, and if it helps one person listening, then we're doing the job that we've set out to do with this.
Right on.
But once again, I'm very, very, very thankful that you guys came on today.
Absolutely.
Glad Ricky made it to where we all crossed paths. Any closing statement from you, Ricky?
I think you guys covered it. Thank you for being on here.
Go Chiefs.
I was just going to say that. Go Chiefs.
And then I'm really hoping Dalton's over there. Oh, I heard him
just
jump
moved.
out of his chair. So we can key Dalton.
Thanks for listening to the M3 Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Want to learn more? Check us out on Instagram at Moss Marketing Group, on Facebook at Moss Marketing 58, or on our website at mossmarketinggroup.com.